listening to Footscray Live.
And welcome everyone, broadcasting live from Whittington Oval. You're listening to Footscray Live. My name is Taylor, and with me today I am joined with Archie, James, and Isaac. And with us today, we have David Hourigan, who's a local artist who builds miniatures of buildings in the local area. This is the Footscray Arts Show, and thank you, David, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So, David, again, do you want to sort of describe what you do? Of course, you're a local artist who does build miniatures of buildings in Melbourne, in the local area, and you're so talented. I mean, there's so much detail in all your artworks. So, do you want to explain what you do?
Sure. As you said, I build miniature buildings of scenes that I love in the area. So I've been doing it since about January of this year, so 11 months, and I just concentrate on the inner west at this stage. So it's buildings that I love, that I walk past every day, and I guess I try and focus on buildings that are a bit unloved, that are a bit decrepit and a bit falling down and a bit at danger of being torn down for redevelopment. Partly I do it just for my own sake because I think they're beautiful buildings. There's something beautiful in something that's decrepit and falling down. And so partly I do it for my own sake just because I like them, I find them aesthetically pleasing. And partly I do it, I guess, to try and keep a record of them, to preserve them in a way. Yeah, I mean, not all of them are falling down or being torn down, but I've built some that have already gone. I'm building some that have been restored and just trying to keep a record of what we are at danger of losing.
Yeah, I mean, that's really amazing. Isaac?
David, I understand that before you worked with miniatures as your main career, you were in retail art. How did you start in retail art, and did you enjoy it? It was about 20 years or so.
Yeah, I worked in retail as a graphic designer for a long time, for about 20 years. And look, I enjoyed it. I liked it a lot. Retail's tough, especially around this time of year. It's just grueling and horrible, and everyone's really stressed out and trying to make a lot of money at Christmas time. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I certainly didn't walk away hating it. But about a year ago, my partner, we've got a young child, and my partner said, look, I've been raising her since she was born. I've been looking after her, and I've been working part-time. I'd like to work more full-time. And I said, look, I'd love to step back a bit and try and do something with my building of models. I've always built miniature things. I've always built models. I've built model kits of cars and trains and things like that, and planes. But I stood back and about a year and a half ago, and I said, why am I building these? I've never flown in a Spitfire. Why am I making a Spitfire? It doesn't have any relevance to me.
Yeah.
So I started building my own things. And I just found it really satisfying to take the skills that I'd learned, ways to paint things to look realistic and ways to make things look old and faded and weathered, all that stuff that I'd sort of honed my art on. I decided, let's build something that I actually find relevant personally, and it's just kind of taken off from there.
Yeah, cool.
I'm Archie here. Would you ever sell your artworks or mini sculptures?
Definitely, yeah. I'm looking to have an exhibition in March of next year, so about 4 months' time, and I'll have them all there all at once, and they will be for sale. Yeah. Sorry, there is one that I will never sell. There's one that's my absolute favourite.
Which one?
It's called the Switch House, and it was the second one I ever made, and it's just a beautiful old industrial building that I really fell in love with when I made it. Yeah.
David, you mentioned an exhibition just before. If people wanted to go to your exhibition or go and view the artwork or some of your works, where could they contact you or find some of your work?
The best way to see my work is via Instagram. I post all of my stuff there. If they just search for David Hourigan Artist, it's Hourigan. And you can see all of my stuff there. But when I get a bit closer to the exhibition and I've put together some really nice stuff, the beauty of being a graphic designer is I can make my own promotional stuff and get it out there. So a bit closer to the date, probably January, February, I'll be putting some stuff out there with details so people can find out about more about it.
Have you thought how much the tickets would be yet? Or is there free entry?
Oh, free entry. It'll be free entry. You can rock up anytime. And I'll be there for 2 weeks, and I'll actually be in the gallery working on whatever project I'm working on at that stage for the 2 weeks that I'm there. So you can come and look at me like a goldfish in a bowl.
So, David, James here. So you've obviously been working on your miniatures for quite a while. How many have you made, and which one do you reckon could... Sorry. I know you've already said that your second artwork was your favourite one.
Yeah.
Why is that your favourite one?
The very first one I made, there were a couple of things that I guess I was kind of learning a little bit while I went. The second one was where it all just really clicked into place. And also I love the subject matter. So it's on a tiny little back street in Seddon. You wouldn't know about it if you weren't living fairly close to it. And it's just like, there was a day when I made this tiny padlock, and the padlock is about 4 millimeters high. And something really clicked for me. I went, this is the one that I love the most. Yeah.
Now that you mentioned your first building wasn't exactly the best, your first building was actually the Yarraville Racing Pigeon Clubhouse.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So how did you start making these? Like, what sort of got you inspired at first?
Again, it's buildings that I had just walked past regularly, when I'm out walking around the suburb, and I just thought, there's something really special in that building. It's this tiny little clubhouse, and it's falling down, and it's actually what's been amazing is that I've gotten to meet a whole bunch of people since I've done these. When you kind of put them out there and show the world and say, this is what I've made, then all these unexpected doors open up for you. So I got contacted by the guy who's the president of the Racing Pigeon Club in Yarraville, and he said, "You want to come and have a look inside?" So yeah, and so I got to go inside, and there are all these like framed pictures of thoroughbred pigeons on the walls, and there's 1940s photos of all the people who were in the club and stuff. And it was
that's
just
insane.
It's something that I would have never gotten to do if I hadn't built a tiny model of it. Yeah.
Well, now that you actually mentioned your first building, you did, change from your full-time job as a graphic designer to working on these sculptures. So how have you managed to make this a living?
I haven't yet. I've sold a couple of commissions this year, so I've had a couple of people approach me and say, look, I would like you to build a miniature of this particular building that has emotional importance for me. One person, her husband grew up in Florida, and there's this one Cuban sandwich shop in Key West, Florida, or in Florida, that he loved. So she said, "Can you make this shop for me?" So I've never been there, I've never seen the shop in person, but you jump online and there's photos of pretty much anything you could ever hope to find. So that's what I've done so far, is a few commissions, and then in March when I have my exhibition, fingers crossed, I'll sell some pieces, and that'll give me enough money to do it all again next year and have another exhibition 12 months later. And that's
and of course,
plan.
I wish the best for you.
Oh, thank you.
Do you practice these buildings on Minecraft first and then build them, or how do you practice building them?
I don't, but I have. This is going to sound so daggy. I have recently gotten into Minecraft. Like literally in the last month, my daughter's gotten into Minecraft. Like, that's actually kind of cool. I really like it.
Yeah.
So I am a Minecraft nerd as of about 4 weeks ago. I'm loving it. But how do I practice them? I guess a big part of the job is I'll sort of go and take photos of the building, and I'll actually walk up with a tape measure and measure a few things. Like that windowsill's 50 centimetres long, and that guttering is 10 centimetres wide, and stuff like that. And from that and all the photos, I can then extrapolate out what dimensions everything is. And I've had people, like, I've been there measuring a place before, and someone came up to me and said, "Excuse me, what are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, I'm just measuring the windowsills." And he said, "No, what are you doing? This is my house." And I said this really lame, "I'm an artist who makes miniatures of buildings that I love." I don't think she believed me.
So, David, you've brought a building here with us today. So what is this building here?
This is the Newport Masonic Hall. So it's in Newport, a couple of suburbs south of here. And it's just this grand, big building. It's a really impressive, tall building. And there's something really amazing about it. So the building itself, it's really ornate, and it's covered in decorations, and there's Doric columns and all kinds of fancy stuff on it. But it's completely decrepit. So all the windows are broken, and it's covered in graffiti, and it's really dirty, and you can see where they've had to paint over graffiti and stuff. So there's something I really like about a building that's big and imposing, but it's kind of fallen on hard days. I think there's something beautiful in that. And I guess all my buildings tend to be a little bit run down, or in need of a coat of paint, or just a little bit tired, and that's what I find really beautiful. A modern, clean, pristine building doesn't do it for me. They're nice. I've seen models of architectural buildings, stuff like that, and it's nice, but it's got no character.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Would you, because about the Win Oval, would you ever build the Win Oval?
Maybe, yeah. How run down is it? It's still pretty good. I could, definitely. It's a big, impressive building. Yeah, maybe.
Actually, now that we have the Masonic Hall building right in front of us, by the way, you can go see pictures of the Masonic Hall he built on his Instagram, which is
Or
David.
Facebook.
Oh yeah, or Facebook. David Hourigan, artist on Instagram. And I just want to say, I mean, just the sculpturing like you've done here. There's so much detail. How long do these take? Like just to make every single little detail.
It's a pretty time-consuming process. So
Oh yeah, for sure.
I work on them while my daughter's at school, so I kind of get a good solid 6 hours each day during weekdays. And a normal one that's not quite as detailed as this one takes about 3 weeks. This one took about 5 weeks, so it's kind of crazy, 5 weeks full-time. I feel so privileged to have a chance to do this. It's amazing that I get to do something I love as my day-to-day job, yeah.
Yeah, David, Isaac here. You said it's a very time-consuming process. How do you? Are there some times where you lack the motivation and find it difficulty to pull yourself in? Because obviously it's a really large job, and there's a lot of details to take into place. Do you ever lack motivation? And because, yeah.
When I first quit my job and I decided, I'm going to give this a try and do this full time, I was a tiny bit worried that I'd be tempted to sleep in each day and to watch daytime TV. And I'm really proud to say I've never done it once.
Wow.
Good job.
And I guess
hard.
I've got an incentive of I want to make this work. It's so much more pleasurable than sitting in an office and doing something to make other people rich. Yeah, which is fine. It's it's a job, and I liked my job, and I worked with amazing people. But I've got a big incentive to make this work, and so if I sat around all day and just kind of watch TV, it wouldn't happen, and then I'd run out of money. I'd have to go back to the real world. At the moment, I'm living the dream to me.
Where do you find all these materials, and what materials are there that you make them with?
The main two things that I use are it's this sort of dense insulation foam. It's blue foam, and it takes sculpting really, really nicely. So that's the main thing I use. But also, I also use plastic card. So you can buy a plastic card, and it just you can sculpt it to shape and glue it together.
So, obviously looking at this, there's an insane amount of detail. Particularly surrounding the little box here. You've got all the right graffiti, all the right numbers on the front there.
Mm-hmm.
Do you take like tons of photos?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
It's pretty nerdy. So I'll go and I'll sort of spend half an hour just photographing one building from every angle I can get, and I just refer to those constantly. So it's really a snapshot in time. So since this has been built, since I went and took photos, there's more graffiti that's been added since, and I'm sure other things will fall off it in the meantime. So it's really it's just capturing it at one particular moment in time.
David, Isaac here. The buildings, obviously you can't build them to scale.
Yeah.
So we always scale them down with this sort of thing. Is there a particular ratio that you'll generally scale a building down to?
Not as such. I thought when I started out, I'll keep them all the same scale, roughly about 1/25th scale.
Yeah.
But I'm finding, obviously smaller buildings don't take up as much space as big buildings.
Yeah.
So the building I'm working on at the moment, which is the Sun Theatre, it's a really, really, really long building. It takes up almost a whole block. And if I kept that at the same scale as all the others, then the final result's going to be like about 1 metre long, and it's just too big. It's too awkward. So I've decided I kind of keep them all to about, the biggest dimension is about 45 centimetres long in any particular way, and that seems to work out. Yeah.
Cool.
So yeah, you just mentioned that your next project is the Sun Theatre.
Yes.
Obviously the Sun Theatre isn't currently dilapidated and breaking down. So what's your plan with making that?
Partly I love it just because it's such a beautiful building. I've not built an Art Deco building before, and I love that 1920s, 1930s Art Deco aesthetic. But the reason I'm attracted to it is I found a couple of photos online, and it's photos from when it was really run down. So it was built in the 1930s, and it was a really popular place. And then it sort of hit hard times in the 80s, and in the 90s it got closed down. It got closed down by the health department because their toilets weren't up to scratch, which seems insane to close a big cinema because your toilets aren't good enough, but they must have had a reason. And so it was empty for about 20 years, and it just got more and more decrepit, and just sort of, homeless people lived in there, and it got destroyed a bit inside. It got covered in graffiti, and that's the phase of it I'm going to build it in. So I'm going to take the modern building, take it back in time a little bit, and then show people this is what a good result is. Some of them fall down and some of them disappear, but some of them can be saved, and this is how far it's come in time. Yeah.
Now that you mentioned that you're building the Sun Theatre, during a time where it wasn't exactly the best, have you ever built another building that's sort of, set back in time, not necessarily what it's like today?
Yes. The Olympic Donut Van, which was a Footscray institution, like everybody over a certain age just speaks to them. They say, "Oh yeah, I remember that. I went and got jam donuts there when I was a kid."
Yeah.
And the guy who ran it, he was there for 40 years or something outside Footscray Station, and he just worked out of this little old tin caravan, and it was a really cute little building. And when they redeveloped Footscray Station, they said, "Take that away, it's not good, it's really old. We'll build you a new building." So they built in this sort of concrete thing about the size of a shipping container, and he worked in there about a month. He said, "Nah, it's not the same, I'm retiring." So that's gone, it's disappeared, It's gone. So all I could work from, I couldn't go, I couldn't take photos, I couldn't take measurements.
Of course.
I just had to try and find stuff online. And luckily, it's such an institution that lots of people had photos up, so I was able to find stuff and work it from there.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
If a year 9 going into year 10 is thinking about work experience, will they be able to do it with you or not?
I work from home in a pretty small space, so as much as I'd love to say, yeah, sure, come along, probably not, just purely because I've only got so much workspace and it's covered in stuff, and I don't know how easy it would be for someone to sit in there and sort of learn from me. Like, I would certainly happily say, yeah, come around and I can talk to you through things and show you how I do stuff. But I don't know how valuable it would be for them to sit with me for a week. I think they'd get pretty bored.
So, David, Archie was just talking about work experience, which would sort of come along. The reason why kids would want to do work experience in that area would be because they want to go into that profession.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any courses or qualifications that you did which really, like, obviously you don't need any to be a self-driven artist, but are there any that in particular helped you? For example, with the ratios and stuff, you would have needed maths.
Yeah, it's true. It's one of the few times I've used high school maths in the real world as an adult.
Yeah.
Don't tell my maths teacher I said that.
Well, which maths was that? Was that general methods?
I did really complicated maths at school, and I hated every moment of it. I'm much more a visual person. I'm much more a sort of arts and humanities type person. But I did maths because I could, and my teachers at the time said, you're smart, you should do this, and I did it, and I hated it. And like I said, I can count on one hand the number of times that I have used my really complicated math skills in the real world as an adult, which is not to say don't do maths. Yeah. But for me, not so helpful.
Yeah. And so apart from the maths, are there any other artsy maybe things that would have helped you?
I guess I've come at this from a bit of a roundabout way. So I studied a Bachelor of Arts at university after school, and I majored in history. So I really, for me, it was a hobby of my whole life. And it's just something that I've kind of decided, let's take something that I utterly, utterly love, that I haven't got a vocational background in, and just try and make that work as a way of earning money.
Cool.
I think all art is a little bit of you've got to come at it. You have to be self-driven, but you also have to come at it from a perspective of, I'm doing something I absolutely love. Yeah.
Now, just as our final question, now that we mentioned, going into university and studying, what would you give any advice to any artist who wants to do maybe miniatures or something similar to this?
I think for anyone who wanted to be an artist, I'd say, you have to be willing to sell yourself a little bit in a good way. You have to be willing to put it out there and sort of show people your work. I think if you just work in a studio and you never want to share it with people, I think you'd really struggle to get by as an artist. But I think being willing to show people your work and take on criticism as well, but also just do what interests you and what you find you love. If you are working with a subject matter you like and you're working with techniques that you like, I think you will enjoy what you do.
Yeah, I think that's some really fantastic advice. And that brings our show to an end. Thank you so much, David, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
That was, again, David Hourigan. He's a local artist who builds miniatures of buildings in the local area. You can also find his Instagram at David Hourigan Artist to find more of his art. And also, he has an exhibition coming up next year.
In March.
My name is Taylor. This was Archie, James, and Isaac. Thank you so much. You've been listening to the Footscray Arts Show on Footscray Live.